Hello, it's the 24th episode of the No Name Cinema Society, everybody. And it's our last big show before our year-end special coming on February 26th. It's February the 8th. Hi, I'm Jonathan Betzler, and look where I am. I'm back in Los Angeles. And you could probably tell by the short-sleeve shirt that I'm wearing here, making fun of all you guys in the snowbound East Coast. You'll see my co-hosts in a second. They're you'll see them like bundled up. Suffering through the winter weather there. So let's start there with our, as you know, tonight we're going to talk about the film Hail Caesar. And our very own Baird Whitlock, ladies and gentlemen, is our boy Jay Money, biggest star in the lot. How you doing, Jay Money?
Good. I feel like that's kind of a mixed message you're sending me about that, a compliment there. That's a little backhanded, I'd have to say.
Well, you haven't seen nothing yet, because our very own Hovey Doyle is over here. Davie Joseph. Davie, because he doesn't say, he's a good-looking guy, doesn't say much though, and when he does, well,
it's profound. It's profound. Now, that's what you were going to say, right?
Davie, what'd you think of the Super Bowl last night?
I think the outcome was not so good, but
well, you're living in Charlotte. The outcome was great for me.
Oh, okay. Well, no one cares, man.
You would have cared if you won. I mean, what do you mean no one cares? The guy possibly ending his career with a Super Bowl win after people say he couldn't win the big game again.
Real quick, you know who also wanted Peyton Manning to win? Cam Newton, apparently, which is why he didn't bother to pick up the ball when he fumbled it.
Sounds a little bitter. Suddenly, I don't understand why you're an Eagles fan. So I'm
an Eagles fan, so I'm always bitter.
So round up. What is everybody drinking tonight? Jay Money, start with you.
I'm just going with a classic red, Italian, of course, given the nature of what we're talking about.
Ah, Davie.
I'm just high on life, man. Sober.
All right, and I've got a little 805, little bit of Firestone Walker's 805 here. It's a tasty beer. We got a big night ahead of us, a lot to cover. So as you know, we're starting out with tonight talking about Hail Caesar. And at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific, we're going to do our Indie Spotlight, which is going to be a separate link and all that. And that's going to be Robert Redford's film, The Conspirator. And then at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, we're going to do our Classic Movie of the Week, which is Educating Rita from 1983. And then our final of the 4 shows of the evening is at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And that is our sound off, sort of our free-form segment, and we're going to do, Davie's got a diatribe that he wants to do, or I'm going to make him do. We've got a couple new segments we're going to try, and of course my top 5, which is going to be the top 5 Coen Brothers. Speaking of which, that's where we start now, and here is the movie we're going to talk about. It is Hail Caesar, I believe. Hold on here.
I believe it too, just for the record.
That's the one I saw, so it would be good.
Oh, 2 out of 3 then. I think by default we have to talk about Hail Caesar.
What happened? I mean,
no
I have
picture?
a problem with the photo. Do you guys see a photo?
I do not. Live television, folks. Stuff happens.
Yeah, how about that? Okay.
Well, but,
That's so strange.
Did something
oh, there it is.
There's something.
Taking some time to upload. All right, here we go. The Coen Brothers' latest effort is this film, Hail Caesar. It takes us back to 1952 Hollywood, where Eddie Mannix, the head of Capitol Pictures, has to juggle several daily dramas of creative types, including The Latest Disaster, where his studio's biggest star, Baird Whitlock, as played by George Clooney right here, Baird Whitlock is kidnapped for ransom. So that's the summary, and it's time for opening thoughts. Davie Joe, you are first.
I have no complaints about this movie. I liked it a lot.
Okay, well that is short and to the point. Jay Money.
As we like to keep it short. Yeah, I would say it's a very, to me, a median Coen Brothers movie, which makes it kind of a slightly better than average movie in general. So no real loss for me there. So yeah, I'm on board with this movie.
Well, I mean, given how much I love classic films and that era especially, this seems like something I would eat up. But despite a handful of laughs here and there, it felt a little too disjointed for me. and a little silly at times for me to really enjoy. I'm not a big fan of this particular film. So let's start with let's talk about narrative structure. I kind of felt like the kidnapping plot itself was only like a small part of the narrative, and which was the trailer was sort of misleading in that regard, which is fine. So what do you guys think about that? It was more of like a slice of life thing. I feel like, in the sense that, like all the lots of little stories sort of happening simultaneously.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's maybe one of the things I found kind of charming about it, was the fact that they were kind of they were being a little bit loose with their storylines and letting things overlap in a playful way, and they weren't too intent on really following strict guidelines for what was happening within the story. They were happy to let each of the characters sort of evolve in their own spaces and let us see them, have fun in those spaces and just let us enjoy the ride of it for the most part. But I do think that a lot of it was intentional, just in the sense that they were making a point about the way that the studios worked. They were making a point about having all these different ideas on the same lot and backstages. So they were having a lot of different storylines in the same lot and backstages. It just seemed like there was a lot of parity between those ideas, so that worked for me.
I just found it myself to be sort of, frustratingly without focus. Like it almost felt too disjointed, too broken up. I couldn't really get behind anything, and I guess the one through line is Eddie Mannix here, his internal conflict, about his future. I guess that was ultimately the main through line, but there wasn't a lot of time spent on it, and I also found it not that compelling. Davey?
Yeah, I think that the question of whether or not he was going to take the other job, and that was, I guess, the through line, and that's
what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think that everything surrounding that I enjoyed, and I wasn't really invested in that particular outcome. Also, it felt kind of secondary, even though it was the one constant.
And that's sort of my point. Is I do feel like it was really the main focus of the movie. It was his arc, if you will. But it was diluted by all this other stuff. And I think what happened here, and I don't blame them, they seem to love, and I appreciate this about them, they seem to love film history as much as I do, and there's a lot of what, they borrow a lot from film history, and I think they love this period, and they're interested in it, and they touched a little bit in a previous film, and, other films, they are constantly sort of doing homages, if you will. And this gave them an opportunity to do homages to several different things but I think that was the problem, is that, this issue with Eddie Mannix and his arc felt forced almost. It felt like, trying to tie all these things together, but they weren't really.
Well, I guess I don't feel like they got in the way. I think that ultimately, I don't think the point was to follow Eddie Mannix's story. I think Eddie Mannix was a vehicle to tie the story together. But I think the point was to see them have fun with all these romanticized ideas about what it was like to be in, studio driven era Hollywood, and to sort of, like you saying, you brought up how they brought up a lot of different sort of inside knowledge about things that were happening, and there were definitely a lot of inside jokes about things that were from that era. I think it was just them having fun with the romantic idea of that era, of that sort of movie making. Something that occurred to me while I was watching.
But in that sense, the movie's more for them than it is for us. You know what I mean? Like, and I guess that's fine. They've earned that right. But I didn't enjoy watching it, aside from like a few laughs here and there. Which leads, I guess, to the next point is,
wait, let me finish.
The comic sensibility. Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying. Something that occurred to me while I was watching is that a lot of people talked about how when Scorsese made Hugo, that was his love letter to the idea of cinema in general. Well, this to me felt like the Coens' love letter to the idea of studio-made era movies. So I think that's really what the point was for them.
Okay, but that still doesn't make it enjoyable to watch necessarily. You know what I mean? Like in that sense, it's sort of anonastic. What's that?
Yeah, but I'm saying like this. If that was the impetus for them, then I don't think that there's a problem with that kind of impetus. I don't think there's a problem behind that idea.
Yeah. I think that's irrelevant, though. I think the results are what we're talking about, and here, like, the results were not enjoyable to me.
Right.
So I think we're agreeing on the same thing. You liked it. I found it pointless. I understand that they had an impetus for it. They had a love of this period, but it felt disjointed and ultimately not interesting as a result.
Well,
to me. And I also didn't find it. I also didn't find it that funny. You know what I mean? Like there were a few times I thought it was funny, and I wanted to ask you guys about favorite moments in a second, but there are a few things that I laughed out loud, but not very many, and not as many as I would have wanted to or expected in something that's this broad. So that what leads me to the next thing is, what is there? Tell me. I want to know about, like, is it parody? Like, it's broad comedy, but is it parody or is it satire? And what is it satirizing if it is satire? Davey?
It's the question of satire. I feel like I need to see the movie again. It's kind of like Lebowski in that way.
Already, you need to see it again?
Yeah, no, I do because I feel like it will benefit a lot from a rewatch. I definitely think that there's some parody of the studio system in there, but I think that there's probably some other line, maybe some kind of parable, kind of like Lebowski, that didn't hit me originally when I saw that the first time. But I think that, as far as I can tell so far, it's simply just a parody on the studio system.
Okay, J Money, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think I would call it satire. I might say that there's definitely a lot of parody in it, but I think that satire requires some sort of level of teeth involved, like it's some sort of point that they're trying to make. And I don't really feel like there was necessarily a point behind what they were trying to make here. I don't think there was some other arching, bigger idea that they were trying to tell people or educate people about, which is what I think satire ultimately is driving towards. I think it was just them having fun. I think it was just them screwing around, for lack of a better word.
Right. No, I totally feel that, and I sort of got the impression. My next question was going to be if you felt like there was political subtext, but it sounds like you don't. And I sort of agree in the sense it sounds like they were just screwing around. But and again, in that sense, this movie is just for them, and it definitely felt like they were just like, it seemed like a super fun movie to work on, like a super fun movie to work on from all departments, and that's all well and good, but I mean, like, the results, we call it like a rehearsal laugh, you know what I mean, like. Where something works really well in rehearsal because it's something you all shared, or like there's something that happens in rehearsal that's it's of a shared interest, but it's not necessarily funny or interesting to the mass audience. So anyway, can I move on to the next thing real quick?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep us moving. I don't know if you noticed that. I'm trying to get everything in. So I apologize if I'm cutting people off. Please, as J Money did, stop me if I'm moving too fast. But I'm trying to keep us brief. Brevity is the soul of wit, as they say. I watched Hamlet today. Anyway, favorite moments. Favorite moments, favorite scenes. Because I had like one or two moments that I thought were really very funny and strong. It didn't add up to a successful whole, but I wanted to ask you guys if you had individual scenes or moments that you enjoyed. Let's start with Davey.
I think that the whole Channing Tatum, the dance move that kind of gets repeated later in the film, I enjoyed that, and I thought he kind of stole the show in a lot of ways.
Did you say he stole the show?
I think he did. I thought he was really good.
This was my second favorite scene, the dance number. And one thing that we haven't had to talk about a lot, we did talk about it in a classic movie not too long ago, last time, is choreography. And I actually thought the choreography in the scene was outstanding. And we don't see it we don't get to talk about it in a lot of our current movie discussions. But yeah, it was outstanding, clever, and served the story within the story, anyway. It would have been, it was very on point as far as, these sailor movies of the early 50s. So this was my second favorite scene, so I'm glad you brought it up. J Money.
Well, just in terms of what was actually, I think, the most effective comedically, there were only a couple scenes where the audience that I was in, and I had a full house for this movie, by the way, completely laughed through the entire scene. The first one was during the meeting that Eddie Mannix, Josh Brolin's character, has with all the different heads of religious authorities to discuss the upcoming project that George Clooney.
Did you enjoy the scene? I understand that you're saying the audience did. Did you enjoy the scene?
Yes. Well, I'm talking about the things that I thought were the most comedically worthwhile. The things that I think resonated with me in terms of how funny they were.
Okay.
So that was one.
That's the one. Did you have another one? It sounded like you had another one.
The other one, all the sequences that involved the character of Lawrence, Ray Fiennes, and the character of the other young actor who was the Western actor whose name I'm blanking on right now. I love the awkwardness that happened around
Alden Ehrenreich.
Thank you. Yep. I love the awkwardness that happened around them, and I also love watching him as a fish out of water really kind of ham it up. I mean, those are things that I really enjoyed. Just in terms of technical detail, I really love the climactic scene at the end with Channing Tatum and the guys in the boat.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I mean, so yeah, this was my favorite scene. I call it the line reading scene, where he pulled him aside and actually tried to get him to say the line exactly, which is something a director is not supposed to do. But as you remember from the movie, he was left, Lawrence Lawrence there on the right was left with no real choice. And there's once I had to do that in my career where I literally had to, I had such a bad actor that I needed to, he needed to make him parrot me. And so not only is it true to life so much, it was also such a well-performed scene, I think. And this was the now I did not have a full house because I went on a Saturday morning, only because it's a long story, but I did get to see it in the ArcLight Dome, and there's some photos of that trip to the Dome on Facebook if you want to look at our Facebook page. But anyway, so this scene I thought was my favorite, and I think it was expertly performed. And also, I mean, in fairness, the sound design, it's a tough scene to record because of all the overlapping dialogue, like the actual sound recording on set, which leads me to the next thing, which is something that's like the Coen Brothers used Skip Livesey, who was the best sound editor and maybe ever, and the soundscape of the film is really, really wonderful. All the craft elements, on Facebook you'll see some photos that we put up of some of the costumes and things like that. So that's a good segue to the craft elements. What did you guys feel? I mean, that's a big plus for the film. I think for me is obviously Roger Deakins' cinematography, production design, Mary Zophres' costumes. Where do you guys land on those? Anybody disagree with me?
No, I certainly wouldn't disagree with you. There were a lot of things visually that they did that I just personally love. I mean, a lot of use of great expanses of empty space to sort of accentuate a character. A lot of great just production design in general. A lot of great set kind of building stuff that was happening. I can't really speak to sound editing. I think that sound editing is something I don't necessarily pay attention to begin with, but I totally have no problem with what you said about it, certainly.
Well, that's a relief, believe me. But what are you talking about, using space to accentuate character?
There was such a great use of, or a great understanding of open lot kind of airiness to this movie. There were a lot of scenes that involved really open expanses, whether or not they were in the back lots, whether or not they were on the soundstage, whether or not they were in the Western. It just seemed like there were a lot of times when I was very aware of a really open sort of stance. I don't know what it's called. What the technical
So, how did that accentuate the character?
Because I think that they're using a lot of negative space to really push your eye towards a certain area, and it's something that I think the Coen Brothers do in general to great effect for a lot of things that they've worked on. But to me, in this movie, perhaps because it was also one of the brightest, technically colorfully brightest Coen Brothers movies.
Well, I mean, it was also and we haven't talked about this. It was also shot on film, which we haven't. Not many things are done that anymore, and it was meant to look as similar as they can get to the the color processes of the 1950s.
Yeah.
J Money, craft element. Oh, sorry. Do you have more, David?
No, go for it. Go for it.
David Joe, craft elements.
Oh, yeah. The scene that sticks out in my mind is the Scarlett Johansson the mermaid scene. I thought that just looked fantastic, and it gave this movie a sort of a grandeur that it was very cinematic. I enjoyed that, and as well as the scenes with the Romans and the kind of the battlefield type situations. It's the kind of movie that the way it flips from a small set to a large really elaborate setup. Like the scene that I'm not supposed to refer to the picture, but I'm referring to the picture.
The picture's up now.
Okay. I liked how it kind of flipped back and forth like that.
I mean, and the other thing about the movies within the movie, they're all even we talked about the dancing. Everything was done, with a level of detail that was outstanding. My not enjoyment of the film has to do with the whole, but all the individual elements were there. I mean, certainly, yeah, we talked about the craft elements, but also the way they filmed the Esther Williams parody is right on the money. I don't know if you guys have seen an Esther Williams film. I don't anticipate a lot of them coming up on our classic movie discussions, but I mean, like, they are very much like that. I mean, like, I guess the only maybe frame of reference for you is they were also very well parodied in the Great Muppet Caper with Miss Piggy in that role. If you guys can remember that movie.
Yeah.
That's our frame of reference.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I try to make it easier for you guys to swallow.
I hadn't put any of that together.
What's that?
I had not put that together, and I thank you.
So, Davy Joe, any standout performances for you?
I mean, Channing Tatum I liked a lot, and Scarlett Johansson I thought was great as well. Everyone was good. Brolin, I can't complain, but those two I thought really stuck out in my mind.
J Money.
You know, this wasn't a movie for me that was built on performances. Nobody had any problems as far as I'm concerned. I just don't think a lot of people had necessarily had a lot to work with anyway. I mean, there was a lot of really quick scenes, and there were a lot of little things that they had to do in them. I don't feel like somebody really stood out for acting for me personally for their performance. But nobody did anything wrong. I mean, I really enjoyed watching everybody go through the motions. So. Well,
I disagree. I certainly wouldn't call it going through the motions, and I disagree certainly. Because I thought Josh Brolin was outstanding, you know, in within this world, you know, this parody world, you know, that they created of this guy running a studio. I thought that was really, really terrific. And the other real find for me is this Alden Ehrenreich character, because this picture isn't working out, but so yeah, he was a real find, I thought. You know, and the Coen Brothers, and we'll talk about this a little more in my top 5 Coen Brother films, but they always tend to do a real good job of getting a lovable oaf in their movies. They do a real good job of paying these lovable oafs throughout their careers, and Alden Ehrenreich was that character this time around, and I think he did a fabulous job with it. So I thought and having not seen him before, he was the real surprise for me. So J Money, you didn't even like Alden Ehrenreich?
No, you know, now that you pointed it out, you're right. He definitely stuck out because I think that he had a lot more to work with. And I certainly, you know, I agree with Josh Brolin's performance. I also just think that Josh Brolin being sort of a square-jawed, you know, funny guy is not a stretch for Josh Brolin. I mean, I think he did his job perfectly, but I also think that wasn't anything new so much for him. But I don't have any complaints about it. I certainly don't think it was a bad job.
No, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I do think those two stood out for me. It's just funny because I thought Channing Tatum was a little over the top. Like Scarlett, I'm more with J Money in the sense that she just did what she had to do. I mean, and whatever. Scarlett, Jonah Hill, Tilda Swinton. Ultimately, they're just cameos. Even like Wayne Knight, you know, and others. Like ultimately, they're just like it's almost like in-joke cameos.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I found more distracting than useful. David, do you have anything else before we move on?
Yeah, just I think that what you're saying is absolutely right, and I think that this.
I love that about you. Thank you.
This is one movie where I think that the Coen Brothers, if they wanted to do a sequel to this, they could pick one of these characters and kind of focus on them and make a really good movie, another one. So I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I don't know that I would.
I don't think you would.
I'm going to wrap things up. Are you guys okay with that so we can get started on the indie? Oh, yeah, one more thing. Hurry up. The buzzer went off.
I don't know if you guys know this or if you have seen the trailers for it, but there actually is a movie coming out in just a week called Risen, which is literally the movie that they were trying to make in this movie, Hail Caesar. It's literally a movie about a Roman soldier who is impressed by this
that is true, but it was also made in the 50s, in 1953, called The Robe.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's funny to me that this movie came out now, a week before. Also starring, by the way, Joe Fiennes, brother of Ray Fiennes, who is also in this movie.
I hear what you're saying, but again, I feel like Hail Caesar was.
I'm not trying to make a connection, JB. I'm just saying it's funny that history is repeating itself in the way that it is at the moment.
It's a heck of a coincidence. It really is.
I don't. Yeah.
It's a coincidence, though. It is a coincidence. It's not. There's no coordination.
All right, I'm gonna move on. Anyway,
not trying connection. It's a funny coincidence. Never mind.
Well, I'm going to disagree with that. That's my prerogative. Because it's anyway, I think that. So anyway, yes, we're not going to be doing a new movie next time. Next time is something really special. It is our end of the year spectacular. I'm going to be talking about our the schedule for that on our sound off. So tune on the sound off, and we'll be promoting it a lot. But it is the voice crack. It is the show to end all shows. It is the big show of the year. We're going all out for the end of the year spectacular, which is February 26th, starting at 8 p.m. And we're gonna have 3 full hour-long segments, and that is Friday, February 26th at 8 p.m. In the meantime, our evening tonight continues with our Indie Spotlight, and that's coming up next. It's going to be Robert Redford's The Conspirator from 2011. And also don't forget that the end of the night, starting at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Pacific, we have our sound off in which we're talking more about the Coen Brothers, and I'll be doing my top 5 Coen Brothers films of all time. And I promise we will spell Coen Brothers correctly. So that is, damn, look what I did. So anyway, that's it for now. So in about 4 minutes, tune in. Wow, my voice is wonky. 4 minutes, tune in for our Indie Spotlight Conspirator coming up very shortly. We will see you then.